Today we're watching 3-2-story scary animation. Make sure to check out MJV animations. Make sure to check out this guy. Can I hear it? Can you guys hear?
To cabin instead of doing the usual family stuff.
Are you serious?
We were all in our early 20s, living far from our families, all kind of burnt out from work. And honestly, the idea of lying around for a few days doing absolutely nothing sounded perfect. The cabin we found about an hour outside of town, tucked halfway in the woods, but still technically in a neighborhood. If 10 other cabins spaced a mile apart counts as one.
Okay, go.
We got there on Christmas Eve, bringing tons of food, snacks, and beer.
Sorry, guys.
And Mark even brought over his Xbox. So we drank and played.
Sorry about that.
For a few days doing absolutely nothing. Sounded perfect. The cabin we found was about an hour outside of town, tucked halfway in the woods, but still technically in a neighborhood. If 10 other cabins spaced a mile apart counts as one. We got there on Christmas Eve, bringing tons of food, snacks, and beer. And Mark even brought over his Xbox. So we drank and played video games
I have an Xbox
until 2 in the morning.
360. The super
It
old.
wasn't exactly a Hallmark holiday, but it was definitely fun. By the time we all went to our rooms to go to bed, I passed out almost immediately. The place was freezing, and the cabin creaked like every other old wooden building, but I was tired enough that none of it mattered, at least until I woke up. It was probably 3 or 4 in the morning, still pitch black outside. I didn't know what time it was exactly, but I knew I'd been asleep for a while, and that something woke me up. Soft, slow footsteps from the main living area. Not walking normally, more like someone taking careful steps, trying not to wake anyone. I blinked a few times, half asleep, and figured it had to be one of the guys, maybe getting water or using the bathroom. I laid there listening, waiting for the footsteps to go down the hall or to the bathroom door. But the sound just stayed in the same area, the creaking boards near the front of the cabin, almost pacing. I wanted to call out and ask if everything was okay, but I didn't feel like yelling from a dark room or going out there and startling them.
Yeah, that's dumb.
Eventually, the footsteps stopped. The cabin settled back into silence. I rolled over and fell asleep again.
Only watching one story.
When I finally got
Or
up
if I
in
have
the morning,
time.
sunlight was coming in through the big living room windows, and the guys were already in the living room. First thing I did was jokingly ask who was creeping around at 4 in the morning. I expected some stupid answer from one of them about losing their phone while drunk or something. I don't know. But both of them gave me the exact same confused look. Mark said, "Dude, we all went to bed at 2. And Tyler shook his head, saying he didn't get up once. I laughed it off at first. I figured maybe I'd imagined it, or dreamed the sound and mistaken it as real. But then I glanced over toward the front door. The lock was undone. Not just the deadbolt, the handle lock too. Fully unlocked. The door was still shut, but the locks weren't turned. I asked if either of them had gone outside this morning. They both said no, and when I pointed out the door, I saw both of their faces fall flat, as we all kind of realized I might have actually heard someone last night. I mean, we were all fairly sure that we had locked the door. But after a minute of thinking about it, Tyler said maybe the wind shook it loose, or maybe the old door just didn't latch right. You know, the usual excuses people make when they don't want to consider anything else. I think it was because all of us wanted to believe that it was nothing, that we eventually just let it go.
Yeah.
We ate breakfast, bundled up in our winter coats because it was still absolutely freezing in the cabin, and spent the afternoon hanging around, playing video games, watching movies, and just having a good time.
Horror movie.
We also handed out small, crappy gifts we'd gotten each other for Christmas, and spent some time FaceTiming our families. It was snowing too much, and way too cold to spend any time outside, even though we all had wanted to go hiking while we were up at the cabin. Over the course of the day, the whole creaking and unlocked door incident faded into just an odd mystery. But as it got later, I guess I started to get a weird gut feeling. We were all in the living room, playing some dumb party game on the Xbox, laughing and yelling at each other. And every so often, I'd catch myself glancing toward the window. I hadn't noticed it much before, but now the blackness outside felt too close. Like someone standing just a few feet back could watch us clearly, while we'd never see them. I knew during the day there were some
One of
trees
those,
just outside of that window.
They can't see you,
literally
but you
10
can't
feet
see
away.
them.
And yet, it was too dark to even see that. I didn't want to mention the bad feeling I had because I didn't want to kill the mood, especially when I really didn't have a reason to feel the way I did. I never actually saw anything. Because we had stayed up so late last night, we only stayed up until around 12 a.m., when Mark decided to head to bed early. Me and Tyler stayed in the living room for another 30 minutes chatting, before both also going to bed. I laid in bed, awake for a while. Hard to tell the time just sitting there, but it felt like an hour-ish. There were no curtains or blinds, so the window next to my bed made me feel really uneasy.
Yeah, what would you
And then I heard it again. The soft, quiet footsteps at the front of the cabin in the living room. I sat up and listened as intently as I could. I knew this time that it wasn't one of my friends, because I would have heard them leave their rooms and walk down the hallway. So really, I was just listening to see if it was just the house creaking, or if it was actually a person. And after a while of listening, I was absolutely
jumped out of
sure
that window
what I was
beside
hearing were
you.
footsteps. And with
Fuck your
whoever it
friend.
was just pacing around the room, I finally decided to get up and maybe try confronting them. But as I walked over to the bedroom door, suddenly
You
the
sleep with
footsteps
shoes
moved
on.
from the living room to the hallway. They got closer and closer, walking all the way down, passing by my door, and going toward what I think was Mark's room. And then it was quiet. I didn't hear anything for several long seconds. I very quietly grabbed the door handle and pushed my door open just slightly enough to peek out into the hallway, not making a sound.
Are you serious?
I saw a large man. I mean, like maybe 6'5" or taller, with long hair and a thick beard. He was standing
like
still,
40.
facing Mark's bedroom door, and just standing there motionless in the dark. I didn't risk looking for too long and moved away, but left the door cracked open still because I didn't want it to make a click sound if I closed it. And at this point, I didn't know what to do. I froze up, unsure how to get us out of this situation. But just 20 seconds later, I heard a slight creak in the hallway, and before I could even react, my door was suddenly pushed open. The man stood in the doorway, staring at me with wide open eyes and an emotionless face. I yelled at the top of my lungs, and the dude didn't even flinch. Before I knew it, Mark and Tyler came running out of their rooms, and I couldn't see much, but Tyler immediately saw the guy and tried to stop him. But this dude was huge, and basically just slammed Tyler against the wall and threw him to the floor. And
Damn.
Mark was probably just frozen still after seeing that.
Yeah, get out
But
the window.
then the guy ran off. Didn't try fighting all of us. He just took off out of the cabin and, from what we could tell, into the forest.
Oh my gosh.
We quickly locked up the place and called the police.
I think I have time for
It
another
took
story.
over 20
One more
minutes,
story.
and the whole time we were anticipating the man coming back. All of us were holding whatever temporary weapons we could find, like kitchen knives and the iron fireplace rock.
What's
But
his name?
he
Tyler
didn't
or
come
something.
back.
I like the man with the
Really,
oh
we
my
got
gosh.
no
I like
answers,
his way.
and most of the
Wasn't one.
situation
They
fell onto
both
the
got
owner of the cabin,
brooms
as he was the one who had
things
his
for
cabin
like
broken
snow.
into.
Pick up the
What
snow.
that man wanted from us or from the cabin, we don't know. From our few theories, though, the one that stands out to me is that he might have been there looking for the owner and not knowing it was a rental. It would explain him staring at me and seeing all of us and not really bothering with doing anything afterward. But again, it really is just a theory. He just as likely could have been there to harm us and just saw it was 3 people and decided to run. Whatever the case, we're all just glad it didn't come down to an all-out fight, because I genuinely don't know who would have won in the end.
I think it would be him. That big. Okay, that was a great story. 10 out of 10. Love you, MJ. I'm calling
This
him
happened
Michael
in
Jackson.
winter, right around
MJV.
Christmas time.
Well,
I
I
live
can
with
call
my
him MJ.
girlfriend, who I'll name as Sarah, and being that we lived pretty far from our families, we almost always went on road trips around the holidays. This year, we were going to Sarah's family's home for Christmas.
Look at her
The
face.
drive
Oh my
was
god,
just
her
under
eyes.
11 hours. Usually this drive wasn't too bad, but maybe we just gotten lucky the
He
years
looks
before.
terrified. Oh my gosh.
Packed and shoved all our bags and suitcases into the trunk, then left for the road trip on Christmas Eve, hoping to make it there at night and have all of Christmas Day with her family. First couple of hours were quiet. Think a lot of people had already done their driving for the holiday, so the roads weren't crowded.
Yeah, I was watching CNN.
Eventually, I pulled
but it
off
said
at a
it's gonna
small
be
gas
flooding
station to top off the tank
for
and just
like
take a break for a
California
minute
people.
before continuing the drive. There wasn't a single other car there. Sarah waited inside the car with the heat on, while I ran inside to pay for the gas and grab us some drinks. The wind was harsh and cold, and the lot hadn't been plowed yet, so there was basically half a foot of snow I had to run through just to get up to the building. I opened the door and walked in, and right away I noticed how quiet it was.
I love the snow.
I didn't see
Everybody
anyone.
does.
I looked around for a second, but figured
And
they
that
were
hit the
probably in the back or
flows
something, and would come out once I was ready. I grabbed a couple of drinks and walked up to the counter, but nobody
don't
came
steal.
up. I
It's
called
bad
out
for you
hello
kids.
and tried just peeking into the back room, but I didn't see anyone or even hear anyone. I think the place was actually empty, even though the doors were unlocked and the lights were on. It was strange, but after a couple of minutes, I just put the drinks away and went back outside to hopefully at least be able to use the gas pump. As soon as I stepped out, I saw a guy standing at my girlfriend's window.
Oh?
Looked like he was trying to talk to her, knocking on the window and looking in. He was bundled up in heavy winter clothing, so aside from what he was
Don't
wearing,
open
I
that window,
couldn't get a good
girl.
look at him.
Don't do
I
it.
started hurrying over, but as soon as he saw me, he backed up and started quickly walking away. I got up to the car and watched as he continued walking down to the road. He clearly wasn't the missing worker at the gas station, so now I was even more concerned. I got in and asked Sarah what that guy was doing. She seemed a little flustered. She said he came up out of nowhere as soon as I walked in, and all the guy was saying was to roll down the window, constantly knocking on it. He didn't say why or really anything else. Obviously, she found it very creepy and had a bad feeling about it, so she kept the doors and windows locked and didn't respond to him. I didn't even bother staying. I turned on the car and drove out of there, hoping we'd reach another gas station along the way. That place just had an unnerving feeling to it, and
Don't
neither
tell
of
me
us
that's the
wanted to be there
story.
a second longer.
I wouldn't do
Unfortunately,
because
because
I don't
of
have
that
that much
whole
time.
thing, we we ended up having
I
to
don't
take a
even know if I
detour
can
to
post
a
this.
different gas station. Because a longer main route, the next one was too far, and would have risked us running out of fuel in the middle of nowhere and in the freezing cold. And it became pretty clear that things were not going to work out the way we wanted. With the detour and the snow slowing us down, we were way behind. It was well into the night already, and we were still 4 hours away. Both of us were tired and figured we could stop at a cheap motel to sleep at for a few hours.
Oh yeah,
and just arrive at the house
something
early on
definitely
Christmas
finna go
morning
down.
instead. Sarah called her family to let them know, and I found a motel just on the side of the highway, a few miles down. The 24/7 motel sign was still on, but the parking lot was empty. I mean, Christmas Eve night is an odd one to spend at a motel. I pulled in and walked up to the door, feeling relieved to see a clerk inside. I got a small room for the night and headed back out to get our travel bags and get us into the room. We were exhausted and pretty much passed out within 30 minutes of getting inside. I set an alarm for 2 a.m. so that we could get up and make it to our family's house by 6 a.m. I think both of us slept like rocks. I never woke up once during the 5-ish hours we were sleeping. When my alarm went off, I groggily got up, not even wanting to get out of bed.
Why
I let
is
Sarah
it
sleep in
shaking?
for a bit while I packed what little we had, then went outside and tossed all the stuff in the back seat. It still looked like nobody else had come by the motel at night. It was incredibly
creepy.
cold, and the wind was awful. It wasn't even snowing that hard, but the wind was blowing all the snow dust up from the ground, making it hard to see. I ran back in and told Sarah it was time to go, then headed back to the front of the building to check us out of the
Clark is
room.
gone. She
I
probably
walked into
got
the
killed
small
or
office
something.
room where the clerk was, but they weren't there.
Yeah, probably got
I stood
killed.
still for a moment, feeling the deja vu of what had happened at the gas station. But this time, obviously, I had seen them earlier. I took a few more steps closer to the desk, and again called out, but still nobody was there.
I don't want to
However,
make
I
it for
saw
20
a bunch
minutes.
of papers
It's gonna take
all over the
hours.
floor behind the desk. It looked like the worker had left in a hurry. I felt this really bad feeling start coming over me as I backed away and ran back out to get Sarah. I sprinted down
She
the
probably
row
got
through the
taken.
doors, opening ours and telling
Smart.
Sarah we had to leave right now. She hurried out and into the car while I grabbed what was left, and then also got in. I noticed my hands were shaking as I turned it on, and was just barely able to get the car going through the snow-covered parking lot. It was as I was pulling back onto the highway that I passed the side of the building and just caught sight of a man on the side of it.
The same man.
Even from that quick glimpse, I saw it was the same guy from the gas station. Same winter coat and everything. Knowing something was definitely wrong, I got onto the highway and Sarah called 911. We met officers at a gas station 15 minutes
I should have
away.
did parts,
And
like
this is
part
where
1,
it
part
got
2.
a lot more disturbing and creepy. One of the officers brought up how impossible it was that the random guy could have been following us without us noticing. And sure enough, he found a tracker stuck right under the back wheel well on our car. The guy must have stuck it there when he went up to our car at the gas station. It took over an hour for separate officers to go to the gas station and the motel, and me and Sarah went pale when they reported back that both workers were confirmed missing.
Oh.
So obviously this guy that was following us had something to do with it. My guess is that he had done something to the worker at the gas station before we arrived.
No, he
Then when I
didn't.
got there, maybe he thought I saw something that I
The
shouldn't
girl
have.
Clark was in
So
there.
he followed us to probably get rid of us too. Can't say for
The
sure
girl Clark
because
was
they
there.
never found the guy. Only evidence was a blurry image from a
After you
gas
guys
station
were sleeping
CCTV
in
camera.
bed, she got killed.
It definitely
Kidnapped.
was the most unsettling way to spend our Christmas morning. And really, we were thinking about it for the entire holiday week. But ultimately, that seemed to be the end of it. After that week, we got no updates on anything. Unfortunately, I haven't heard anything back about either the gas station worker or the motel worker, so I think it's safe to assume they're both still missing. Which makes it even more eerie to think that both me and Sarah could have been still missing as well, had we not gotten out of there.